Greetings.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulullah. By the name of Allah and the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His last and final messenger. Family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love and hatred of my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please like, please subscribe, and please share. As you know, we got a hell of haters up in that his hate. And I know they watching, they hate watching, but it's okay. It is okay, baby. No problem. You keep hate watching. There's no problem because, it spikes the algorithm anyways. But I digress. Family, we did a very quick live yesterday about certain is not real countries essentially detaining and deporting MPs, British MPs, British parliamentary members. And this is something that we said that, this is going to essentially cause irreparable damage between Europe and Israel. That's my humble opinion, right? And now, as you know, what's going on in the U.S. is insanely crazier than normal, okay? And something just came up recently, which happened. Like when I saw this, I was totally shocked, right? Because I wasn't planning on going live on this at all. But since this happened, we're doing a short live again about this particular topic. And before we even get into it, I want to tell y'all about why I stopped watching the UFC. And I don't think I told this story on this channel. But even if I did, you're all about to hear it again. So too bad for you. Okay. So like, subscribe, share. If y'all can hear me, just press number 1 in the chat, please. And let's get down to the nitty gritty. So I've been an MMA fan for a very, very, very long time. Okay. And when I say MMA, I mean not just UFC, but all like MMA, organizations. But the UFC was the one who kind of first started to broke out a long time ago in the 90s. And I have watched every single UFC since UFC 1. Okay. So I'm a big, huge UFC fan. I'm even like, whatchamacallit. You can say I'm like a low-key, like MMA alim, okay? Low-key. Okay, so I know a lot about MMA. Okay, that's my vice. Okay, I said before, I told y'all before that MMA is my voice, but that's one thing, that I actually watch. Okay, that I actually enjoy for like entertainment or whatever. That is my thing, MMA. Okay, so anyways, the point is, I have seen a lot of UFC, okay? And even when there were other organizations like Pride and Strike Force, I used to even watch those. And I remember how UFC brought out Pride, they brought out Strike Force, and a lot of the fighters came from these organizations into the UFC because UFC absorbed them. They were becoming like a monster, okay? UFC is becoming a monster. They're taking up all the talent, right? They're just basically eating up the small guys, gobbling them up, okay? And what happened was the reason why I stopped watching UFC, and this is fairly recent. I don't think I ever told this story ever, right? Not on this channel, anyways. Okay, so y'all, can y'all hear me? All right, can y'all hear me? Just press number 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me, please. But anyways, UFC 309. Okay, it is John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. So you can imagine the amount of UFCs I watch. I watch from UFC 1 all the way to UFC 309. And, there was like a whole bunch of controversy running behind this fight anyways, because Stipe Miocic, he hasn't fought in a long time, and he's about to, he's like over the hill, all kind of stuff, right? All kind of stuff, But I could see why John Jones wanted to fight Stipe Miocic. I could see why he wanted to do it, because Stipe Miocic is an MMA legend. However, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the fight because people were saying with John Jones, he kind of like became champion of the heavyweight division. His historical division was light heavyweight, and now he's kind of like picking and choosing his fights, like easy fights or whatever. I didn't really care. I just like to see the fights. Okay, that's my thing, right? So finally, after all this controversy, USC 309 happens, and USA 309 just happened to be shortly after the U.S. presidential election in, I believe it was December. Right, it was the last UFC of the year, and the election already happened. It's 2024, and Donald Trump had won. Now, for y'all who don't know anything about UFC and Donald Trump, Dana White, who is the owner of UFC, he's a big, huge supporter of Donald Trump. But he had largely remained apolitical, but he always, supported Donald Trump, like always, right? And he wasn't shy to say that, yeah, he supports Donald Trump. And the reason why he supports Donald Trump is because when UFC was struggling, Donald Trump gave the UFC a venue in order to push their fights and whatnot. And because he did that, he essentially, pulled the UFC. It's way back in the early days. Because if y'all watch the early fights, the early fights they started off, really, really good, really exciting. And then a whole bunch of wrestlers came, and the wrestlers kind of ruined the UFC for a period of time there, because they would just do a style called lay and pray. They take people down and just lay on them for like the entire duration of the fight. In those days, there was like the fights were like an hour long. Like those who don't know, you remember, right? So you can imagine watching like a whole fight, of a guy just laying down on a guy for an entire hour. It started getting boring, and the UFC started, losing viewership and all kind of stuff. Right? But anyways, that's not you heard. The point is that Donald Trump, he bailed them out. Okay, he bailed them out. So since he did that, Dana White, he's showing loyalty to him, and he supports him. That's why he supports Donald Trump. So what happened at UFC 309? So Donald Trump, he wins the election, and at UFC 309, it's the first time I've ever seen this at any sports event ever, right? Donald Trump and you could say his team, roll out to like a hero's welcome, looking like the Legion of Doom family. I mean, they was out there looking like a whole, it was surreal. It was, if you seen it, if you see how they just came out, and all of New York, the New York arena, because the UFC 309 was in New York, they were cheering them on. Donald Trump came with Vivek Ramaswamy. He came with Elon Musk. He came it was just crazy. It was crazy. Okay. And then, I mean, that's one thing, but it's not the first time that Donald Trump came, because whenever they do UFC in New York, he's always there at these UFCs in New York. But this is the first time he came out with his entire crew, right? All these billionaires, and the people were cheering. They're like, well, this is like really, really weird. But then the fighters, and this is the weird thing, this really never happened before, right? Like almost every fighter was congratulating Donald Trump, like bending the knee on the mic after their wins and everything like that, right? But the worst one was John Jones, right? And John Jones, he did a whole Donald Trump dance and everything. Donald Jones had never ever shown any political affinity at all in his entire career, not once. But he was out there doing the Donald Trump dance and went viral, all kind of stuff, right? And he's praising Donald Trump as the best president in the world. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I can't watch this stuff anymore. And why is that? There's an old statement from ancient Roman poet. Okay, his name is Juvenal. Okay, and he said, it's a very popular statement. He says, "Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt." Okay, that's and if y'all don't understand this is essentially what he is trying to say, is that it refers to the practice of pacifying the populace with free food and entertainment to distract them from the real issues that in society in order to maintain the social order. And there was no better example of that than what happened on USC 309. Despite, Dana White being an avid supporter of Donald Trump, this was over the top. It was very clear what was going on, in my humble opinion. You see, when you are tethered to a poisonous ideology, right, then everything that you think that is being pushed by the popular, or rather the the dominant society, everything that they tell you to do, you'll just do it because it's a poisonous ideology. As long as you keep receiving entertainment, as long as you have your bellies full, you will never oppose them. You get me? And now what is going on is that this far right regime that's happening in America, there is no doubt that, in my mind, right, that they fully plan to re-implement the old nostalgic view of what America was in terms of re-enslavement, in terms of dominating darker people across the world. This is why they are so hell-bent on deporting Hispanics, because, as we mentioned before many times, that the demographic trend in the U.S. is that Hispanics they will pass, and I believe they already have passed Black people as the second most populous group, but they will also pass white folks as the most populous group, which is why they are very aggressive in deporting the population from Latin America, because they want to maintain their numbers in terms of being the dominant society. As Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she mentioned, they are afraid of white genetic annihilation. And white folks, they themselves admit that they are afraid of white genetic annihilation, and they call it the Great Replacement Theory. It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. So now, what you have are these demons, these devils, doing all kinds of madness and craziness to make sure that their demographic numbers maintain supremacy. Okay. So they're not being surpassed by anybody. They don't want to be having no more. They don't want to have, large families. And this is what this abortion ban is about. It's what the deportations is about. And so it's all because of what they themselves call the Great Replacement Theory, or what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing called white genetic annihilation, which brings us to the topic of today, because of a brazen arrest that happened recently under the auspices of the UFC. We're talking about the UFC. We talk about how Dana White, he's a very staunch supporter of Donald Trump because of how Donald Trump helped him with the UFC. Staunch supporter, right? And he will not, basically stop supporting Donald Trump despite his madness. However, Donald Trump, being who he is, has effectively got into Dana White's UFC business. So now, one second, family. Let me just pull this up. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. 1 second. Look here. Can y'all see this? Australian MMA legend Renato Subotic detained in the U.S. Okay. A fear goes over Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. The head coach of an MMA Australian team has found himself behind bars. Australian MMA legend Renato Subotic has taken to social media to reveal he was detained during a recent trip to the United States. Subotic, the head of the coach of the MMA Australian team, was heading to a seminar. However, he found himself behind bars. The 33-year-old explained that the immigration officials pulled him aside at the border due to an alleged issue with his visa. Now, the alleged issue with his visa, if you see what he looked like, this is the alleged issue of his visa. He looking real Hispanic. He got a little tinge of melanin that brings him, that crosses the white thresholds there. That's the problem with his visa. And plus his name is Renato, okay? Renato is a popular Portuguese name from Brazil. Okay? Let's keep reading, family. It comes amid public backlash at the Trump administration, which is using extraordinary measures to crack down on immigration, including invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Rarely use wartime authority. We can do a whole video. We literally could do a whole video behind the Alien Enemies Act. Now, remember, we told y'all that the laws there in the United States, and even most countries west of the Pacific, like anything in North America, anything in South America, their laws are meant to make sure that the dominant white societies remain dominant. That's how they do their laws. And the Alien Enemies Act of 1790 ain't no different, right? We can do a whole thing, right, just on that. Meanwhile, you have folks out here, claiming to be Muslim, talking about, CRT as Marxism and crap. Well, does it look like Marxism today? Where are these folks now? Where are these folks talking about CRT as Marxism? Where are they? You're seeing it all in real time. Gestapo tactics. The same type of SS tactics that the Nazis used to do in Europe and stuff, and the Gestapo used to do, is exactly the same thing, okay? Where you have ICE now essentially rounding up arbitrarily political dissenters and deporting them and imprisoning them. And on top of that, anybody with the wrong shade of melanin in their skin, mostly Hispanics, sending them to prison camps overseas somewhere. Arbitrarily, they're doing this. So the traitors of the Dawa have betrayed you. We've been warning you about the traitors for how many years now? We've been telling you that they betrayed us. We've been telling you that they treacherous and stuff. Okay? But anyways, let's keep reading, y'all. I arrived in America excited and ready to coach my seminars, Subotic wrote in his Instagram post, from title which are from the seminar cell, my 24 hours in U.S. federal prison, arrested for too much knowledge in MMA. I was supposed to be a great trip. Instead, I got stopped at the border. Immigration pulled me aside and took me into an isolated room. The officer interviewing me looked like he was looking for something wrong. He insisted that all the information the immigration requested was provided. Okay, so here's his Instagram post here. We'll read from it. From seminar to cell, my 24 hours in the U.S. federal prison. Okay, so here we go. hold on. Immigration pulled me aside and took me in an isolated room. The officer interviewed me and looked at like he was looking for something wrong. It was obvious that I was in the U.S. I gave him every specific detail about my seminar, my plans, everything. They kept me in the room for 3 hours asking endless questions. I was collaborative. They told me there was a mistake with my visa and that they're taking me to jail. You take people to jail for mistakes in your visa. You see, these billionaires who certain Muslim personalities have insisted that we vote for are now using taxpayer money to put people in jail for what they deem mistakes in visas. And let me tell y'all something, right? They're about to find a hell of a lot of mistakes in some of you brownies visas, okay? And to be quite honest, those of y'all who supported this stuff would 100% deserve it. Cry me a goddamn river. You know, you ain't gonna see a a tear shed from me. Okay, let me tell y'all something. Okay, the F's to gives are out of stock. You get it? The F stickers are out of stock. You can't buy them on Amazon. You can't get them on Tmall. Okay, they are nowhere to be found. For all of y'all who were all in on this alt-right, far-right, white supremacist stuff, guess what? There is a global, worldwide F to give shortage. Okay? Worldwide. Okay? And because of that, we don't have any F's to gives. And even if we did, the shortage is so profound that if we had a single F to give, you couldn't afford it because it's too expensive. It's too expensive for you because F's to gives right now cost a lot because of the global shortage. You get it? So too bad, so sad. We told y'all. You were the ones all over, the Feachaz channel, trolling and calling us all kind of craziness. Well, guess who's looking crazy now? And guess where all the F's to gives have gone. Okay. You bought them all, you caused the shortage. So sorry. Okay. He keeps on. They stripped me of everything. They took my clothes, gave me jail clothes, fingerprinted me, took photos, searched me, gave me a blanket and a sheet, and they walked me to my block, 4B. The moment the door opened, it was chaos. Fights between gangs, people screaming, arguing over food, what to watch on TV, crazy people running around. This is his experience he's talking about. Madness. The guard walked me to my cell 221. There was a filthy mattress with patches, and this is what he says, patches of piss and blood. Are y'all catching this? Let's keep reading, y'all. The guard told me to hurry up so I could get some food. I dropped the stuff off and went downstairs. While I was in line, 4 guys started beating the hell out of another guy, smashing his head into a fence. I wasn't even hungry. They grabbed an apple, ate it, and walked straight back to my cell. When I got back, 2 Mexican guys were in there stealing my blanket and sheet. I said, "Hey, bro, what are you doing?" One of them replied, getting my stuff. I said, "That's my stuff." And then he looked at me and said, "What are you going to do about it?" We had a fight. I got my stuff back. The other one ran out of the cell screaming. The people nearby the cells came to watch can you imagine? Can you imagine? So this guy, he could actually defend himself. Now, these folks, they are not criminals, but you can see how good, seemingly good people, seemingly people who don't have inclination to criminality can be pushed into criminality by actual real criminals in suits, demons in suits. Can you imagine all this? But I digress, family. 1 second, y'all. Let me just get another one right here. No, let's keep reading this one, actually. We'll keep reading this one. The guard looked at me and said, you got a good welcome. Keep your head straight or you're going to stay here longer. So the guard threatened to keep him there longer. It was obvious why I was in the U.S. I gave him every specific detail about my seminar plans, everything. However, he claimed authorities weren't convinced, and spending 3 hours in the room, he was sent to jail. So, in my opinion, this story right here, it will have wide-reaching ramifications because this will not be restricted. If this can happen to one of Donald Trump's, business supporter, like billionaire, like you're talking about Dana White here, then look at all the other sports that have an international presence. You have baseball, huge Latin American presence. You have basketball, huge global presence from Africa, from Europe, from China. And of course, UFC, huge global presence. Can you imagine these Russian fighters, these Dagestanis and stuff like that, trying to get into the U.S. under this regime? The Coliseum is going down, family. The Coliseum is going down. So, anyway, y'all are real quiet. I know what's going on, right? I hope y'all can hear me. Let me go over here. 1 second, family. So, Subatish, who joined IMMAF Coaching Commission just a few months ago, said he was stripped of everything and is given jail clothes, and he was fingerprinted and had to take photographs taken of himself. Okay. Then he had handed a blanket, a sheet, and taken the block for years. Okay, so we read all this anyway. He said we read from his own accounts, right? But the point is that I don't think that this is going to be a small thing. I believe that this will be turned into a massive fiasco, and you're going to see the collapse of the bread and circus industry, right? Because of this stuff. That's what I believe. Okay, so fam, we're going to call it. I don't know what's going on, and you guys are extra quiet. I don't even know if y'all can hear me. I hope y'all can hear me, right? But like, subscribe, share. Hit me up on Patreon, family. And free the land, beloved. Free the land. And subhanallah, hamdik wa shahada la ant wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wa Salaam Alaikum.